What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be talking about boredom, part two. I did a video a while ago about boredom, and I just spoke about it from the perspective of, living a lifestyle where there's constant stimulation that kind of creates overwhelm. And I spoke about how, things like task switching, which we're prone to do, it's kind of bad for your cognition because it takes time for your brain to reset. So when you're kind of attending to all these different things, you're kind of stockpiling your like unconscious mind, and that's what kind of creates the general kind of sense of overwhelm and things like that. So I spoke about it more from a kind of, let's say, psychological experiential standpoint. So now I'm going to talk about it more in terms of like dopamine impairment and things like that. So, dopamine impairment, just like general impairment of dopamine, occurs when you kind of live in a way of, constant stimulation. So, there's kind of like the fad of the dopamine detox. And when someone feels like they get to that point where they need that, it is kind of an issue of constant stimulation, surprisingly enough, because so dopamine is something that it motivates us to take action, and it also signals value of a particular thing. It's like, doing that activity is valuable, and when you do it, at the end, when you complete it, the dopamine is like, yes, it's like a memory of like, this is good, so look for it next time. But what dopamine is not, it's not like what feels good. And that's a very important distinction for my next few points. Because what feels good is actually endogenous opioids. When you're doing, the dopamine is what motivates you to do the thing. It's like, this will be good. And whilst you're doing it and you're feeling good, it's the endogenous opioids that are being released that are the experience of this is good. And where dopamine comes in is it kind of gives input to another part of your brain that helps you calculate the value of a particular thing. And it's like an equation. It's like reward minus effort. So it's like balancing that reward and effort, right? So dopamine is just like giving information to that part of your brain to do that calculation. There's other things that are input. It's a little bit complex. There's like the endocannabinoid system that's involved too, as well as endogenous opioids. But anyways, this is the problem with, like, if you constantly need stimulation, it basically means your dopamine is frequent, but it's like low volume. If you know what I mean? It's like constant noise, but it's like a much lower intensity. So when it's like stuck on that low gear, it basically sends that to the calculation part of your brain, and it means everything kind of is low value, right? And as a result, what your brain does, it means that it's like, hey, if everything is giving low value, then the only things that are worth doing are things that are low effort, because it has to balance it out. And what as a result, this is the key thing with the distinction, is that then you're mostly motivated to do things that you don't really enjoy. It's like that's why it becomes so easy to scroll on your phone. It's like you're not like having the time of your life, but your brain is like, hey, like this is low effort, and it matches our state of how we're deriving value from the world, right? So that's the issue with constant stimulation, because it creates that dynamic. So this is where tolerating boredom is a good thing. It's a way of sort of resetting your system, just that general principle. And of course, it goes deeper than that. There's a lot more things you have to do, but just to kind of keep it simple, like tolerating boredom is the general mindset you want to take forward with you. And it's also something, it takes a while for your brain to actually change. Like it takes months, right? So it's not something you can just do overnight or whatever. But the value in doing it, you can get value in it short term, in more of an emotional attachment sense, which I found. It almost feels like when you're so used to attending to that stimulation seeking part of yourself, you feel like if I don't, I'm gonna die. It's like you just you don't dare not, you don't want to experience that. But once you do, once you're just like, let me just sit with this boredom, you kind of feel like, oh, it's all right. So it's not, you don't have to wait for months for your entire brain to change. You can feel that release of like, oh, I don't need to just have these things stimulating me. You get that emotional release from I'm fine. I'm actually okay. And that's actually a nice feeling in and of itself. So anyways, that's tolerating boredom part 2. Dove into a bit of the neuroscience and the value of tolerating boredom and how it can kind of help just reset how we how our brain works. So yeah.